He was never supposed to carry that kind of silence home with him. Not after what life had already taken. Not after years of learning how to stand back up when everything inside him wanted to stay down. The snow came sideways across Highway 26 that night outside Sheridan, Wyoming, thin white streaks cutting through the darkness under flickering gas station lights. It was 2:13 in the morning, the kind of cold that found its way through denim, through leather, through memory. The neon sign outside Russ Creek Diner buzzed unevenly against the storm. Open all night, one letter barely hanging on. Inside, warmth settled low beneath old ceiling fans and faded photographs nailed to cedar walls. Coffee steamed. Bacon grease lingered in the air. Silverware clinked softly against ceramic plates. Country music drifted low from a dusty radio behind the register. Most people inside barely noticed the boy near the kitchen door. 16 maybe. Skinny frame. Dark apron too big for him. Shoulders carrying more weight than dishes ever should. His name tag read Caleb. He moved carefully. Too carefully. Like someone trying not to take up space. Nathan Cross noticed him immediately. Former Marine. 44 years old. White. Broad shoulders worn softer by time. Quiet eyes that missed very little. A weathered brown coat, dusted white from snow. Beside him walked Atlas. 7-year-old German shepherd. Deep sable coat. Amber eyes sharp beneath tired wisdom. Retired canine. Loyal enough to carry ghosts for 2 lifetimes. Nathan slid into a booth near the back wall. Atlas settled beside him without command. Calm. Still. Watching. The waitress brought coffee. Nathan wrapped cold hand around the mug. Heat climbed slowly back into his fingers. Outside, the storm pushed harder against the windows. Then the door opened. Cold air swept inside. Heavy boots crossed old tile. Loud voice. Forced laughter. Expensive jacket. Confidence sharpened into cruelty. Nathan never looked up immediately. Marines learn that. Watch first. React later. Atlas lifted his head. Ears forward. Eyes fixed. The man moved toward the counter. Mid-30s maybe. Clean beard. Perfect watch. Local money. Local power. The kind. People stepped around instead of through. Caleb dropped a spoon. Tiny sound. Barely anything. But the room changed. The man's voice cut through the diner. Not yelling. Worse. Calm disappointment sharpened into humiliation. Caleb apologized quietly. Too quietly. The man kept going. Little comments. Small cuts. Death by paper slices nobody else wanted to notice. Nathan stared into his coffee. Atlas did not. Atlas stood slowly. Not aggressive. Not nervous. Focused. Locked in. Nathan knew that posture. Afghanistan taught him that posture. Atlas was not looking at the man. Atlas was looking past him, toward something nobody else had seen. Nathan followed his line of sight. Nothing. Just snow outside. Pickup trucks. Empty pumps. Darkness. Atlas remained still. Muscles tight. Eyes unblinking. Then something happened Nathan had not seen in years. Atlas remembered something. Not a sound. Not movement. A scent. Somewhere beneath burnt coffee and fryer grease and winter air. Something old. Something wrong. Nathan slowly set his cup down. Across the diner, Caleb lowered his eyes toward the floor. Atlas never moved. Before we begin, tell me, we're witching from Drop Your Country in the comments. I'd love to see how far this story travels. The storm deepened outside until the windows looked painted over in white. Snow drifted sideways beneath the gas station lights and disappeared into darkness beyond the highway. Russ Creek Diner settled back into its uneasy rhythm. Coffee poured. Plates moved. Country music hummed, low beneath quiet conversations pretending nothing unusual had happened. Nathan Cross knew that feeling. People learned to live beside discomfort when they believed it belonged to somebody else. Atlas remained standing beside the booth, still watching, still tracking something invisible moving beneath ordinary moments. Nathan leaned forward slowly and rested one hand near the edge of the table. Atlas glanced back once. That was enough. 20 different places. 12 years working beside a military dog. Nathan knew what that look meant. Not danger. Not fear. Recognition. Somewhere inside Atlas something old had opened. Nathan stared toward the front counter again. Caleb moved carefully between tables, carrying plates of hash browns and coffee refills. Too careful, like somebody afraid mistakes cost more than they should. Nathan knew that posture too. His fingers wrapped tighter around the coffee mug. Heat pressed against old scars hidden beneath his coat sleeve. 10 years ago, Nathan Cross lived in Colorado Springs. Small house. Basketball hoop leaning crooked beside the driveway. Saturday pancakes. School pickups. Ordinary things people forget matter until they disappear. His son Ryan had laughed loudly. Talked too fast. Asked too many questions. Built model airplanes across the kitchen table and left glue marks everywhere. Nathan used to pretend it annoyed him. Secretly, he loved every second. Then middle school came. Hard years. Quiet changes. Ryan smiled less. Stayed in his room longer. Said everything was fine, even when it was not. Nathan had spent years learning to spot threats overseas. Strange roads. Hidden danger. Tension buried beneath silence. But sometimes fathers miss storms happening inside their own homes. One winter afternoon, Nathan found folded papers inside Ryan's backpack. Mean jokes. Cruel comments. Small things people called normal. Nathan remembered sitting in his truck, afterwards staring at the steering wheel while snow collected across the windshield. Feeling helpless felt worse than fear. Always worse. Years passed. Life moved forward because it does whether people want it to or not. Atlas came later. Wyoming training facility. Retired K-9 program. Atlas had already served 6 years beside handlers who moved on while he carried memories nobody could explain. Nathan recognized something familiar immediately. Quiet pain. Loyalty without conditions. A creature carrying more weight than anyone noticed. They healed slowly together. Long roads. Empty trails. Fishing mornings beside cold rivers. Silence shared instead of survived. Atlas lowered his nose slightly now, breathing deeper, watching harder. Nathan followed his line again. Front counter. Snow outside. Pickup truck near pump 4. Caleb walking toward table 6 carrying hot coffee. Then Nathan saw it. Caleb flinched. Not for dropping something. Not for noise. The man near the counter had only looked at him. Atlas shifted his weight once beside the booth. Amber eyes steady. Locked. Somewhere beneath fresh coffee and winter wind and old diner grease, Atlas remembered something Nathan still could not see. The clock above the pie display read 2:26 in the morning. Outside Russ Creek Diner, the storm pressed harder against the glass. Wind rolled snow across the empty highway in pale waves under tired gas station lights. The parking lot beyond Pump 4 sat mostly empty except for 3 pickup trucks and an older silver SUV gathering fresh snow across its windshield. Inside, warmth lingered low beneath hanging lamps and old cedar walls darkened by decades of coffee steam and winter nights. Nathan Cross sat motionless inside his booth. Atlas stood beside him, watching, breathing slowly, focused on something buried beneath ordinary life. The man near the counter laughed again. Confident, comfortable, the kind of confidence that came from years of believing nobody would challenge him. Mid-30s, expensive boots, heavy watch catching light every time he moved. His name came quietly from the waitress near the register. Mason, just one word. Enough to tell Nathan people here knew him. The waitress moved carefully when she spoke to him. Caleb moved even more carefully. Atlas shifted slightly beside Nathan. Not nervous, calculating. Nathan recognized it immediately. Atlas did not waste energy without reason. The retired German Shepherd had once worked crowded airports and military checkpoints where small details mattered. Smells, patterns, tension hidden beneath smiles. Nathan leaned back slowly and watched Caleb refill a coffee near booth 3. The teenager kept his shoulders low, eyes down, always moving, always apologizing even when nobody asked him to. Mason turned toward him again. Careful there, he said lightly. Too lightly. You spill something tonight, and I might start charging rent for all this extra attention. Small laugh. A few people smiled awkwardly without meaning to. Caleb forced one back. Sorry, sir. Nathan stared into his coffee. Alice did not move. Mason returned to his booth near the front window. Phone out. Expensive leather jacket folded beside him. Truck keys sitting near his plate. Local man. Local comfort. Nathan had seen men like him before. Not bad people. Not good people. Just people who learned too early that kindness was optional. Atlas lowered his nose toward the floor. Breathing deeper now, Nathan followed quietly. There, near booth 4. Faint. Sharp. Chemical. Not dangerous. Familiar. Strange how memory lived inside scent. Winter roads. Vet pavement. Industrial cleaner. Motor oil. Atlas knew it. Nathan knew Atlas knew it. The waitress walked over carrying fresh pie slices. Mid-50s maybe, gray streaks in dark hair. Tired eyes softened by kindness. Name tag, Red Mary. She placed Nathan's refill quietly beside him. Storm getting worse, she said softly. Nathan nodded once. Looks like it. Mary glanced toward Atlas. Beautiful dog. Nathan rested one hand lightly near Atlas's shoulder. He has earned his years. Mary smiled faintly. Then her eyes moved toward Mason. Smile gone. Just for a second. Nathan noticed. Marines learn that too. Tiny shifts. Little things. Mary lowered her voice. Some people make rooms colder. Nathan said nothing. She moved away. Atlas suddenly lifted his head higher. Ears forward. Muscles tight beneath sable fur. Nathan followed his line again. Front window. Snow outside. Pump 4. Silver SUV. Then he saw it. A young woman running through the storm toward the diner. No coat. Snow catching in her hair. One hand pulling the door open hard enough to rattle old glass. Breathing fast. Eyes wide. Frightened. The entire diner looked up. Atlas stood completely still. Because somehow before anyone said a single word, he already knew this night had just changed. Cold air swept across the floor as the diner door slammed shut behind her. Snow melted across old tile beneath her boots. She could not have been older than 30. Blonde hair tangled by wind. Sweat and snow clinging together along her forehead. One glove missing. Eyes wide with the kind of fear people do not practice. The kind that arrives all at once. My daughter, she said between breaths. Has anybody seen my daughter? The room changed. Quiet. Conversations disappeared. Forks stopped moving. Even the old country song playing through the radio seemed suddenly too small for the moment standing inside Russ Creek Diner. Mary moved first. Honey, slow down, she said softly. What happened? The woman struggled to catch her breath. Emma, 8 years old, brown coat, pink gloves. Her voice cracked. We stopped for gas 10 minutes ago. 10 minutes. Nathan Cross felt something heavy settle low in his chest. Storm outside. Highway conditions worsening. Visibility disappearing. Atlas stood perfectly still beside him. Too still. The woman wrapped shaking arms around herself. I went inside the restroom for 1 minute. Maybe 2. Tears formed, but never fully fell. She was right there. Nobody moved for a second. Fear does strange things to people. Makes time slow down. Makes ordinary rooms feel smaller. Caleb stepped carefully away from the kitchen doorway. Nathan noticed him immediately. The boy looked different now. Not scared of making mistakes anymore. Scared for someone else. I can check outside, Caleb said quietly. Nathan stood. 6'2", broad shoulders rising slowly beneath worn canvas and old memories. I will go. Mary grabbed her phone immediately. I am calling county dispatch. The woman looked toward Nathan like drowning people look toward shore. Please. Atlas moved before Nathan said a word. Straight toward the front windows. Ears forward. Focused. Not toward open highway. Not toward gas pumps. Toward pump 4. Toward the silver SUV sitting beneath fresh snowfall. Nathan followed. Mason noticed. Everybody noticed. Mason slowly pushed back from his booth near the front window. You think somebody is hiding a kid in a parking lot? He asked with a dry laugh. Nobody answered him. Atlas reached the front door and stopped. Nose lifted slightly. Breathing deeper. Nathan opened the door. Cold Wyoming wind rolled hard into the diner, carrying snow and gasoline and winter darkness inside with it. Atlas stepped outside. Nathan followed. Snow crunched beneath boots. Wind pushed sharp against his face. Atlas moved carefully across the lot. Not running, not searching randomly. Tracking, methodical. Years of training buried beneath retirement, waking quietly back to life. Nathan glanced once toward Pump 4. Silver SUV. Snow untouched along one side. Mason stepped outside behind them now. Jacket pulled tighter against cold. "This is ridiculous," he said. "Kid probably wandered into the restroom or something." Nathan said nothing. Atlas reached the SUV. Stopped. Sat down slowly. Perfectly still. Nathan felt his pulse shift. Atlas only sat like that when certainty lived beneath instinct. The storm pushed harder across the empty highway. Snow moving sideways beneath pale gas station lights. Then Nathan saw something Atlas had noticed before anyone else. Small, easy to miss, half hidden beneath drifting snow beside the silver SUV. One pink glove. The pink glove sat half buried beneath fresh snow beside the silver SUV, like winter itself had tried to hide it. Small, child-sized. One finger bent awkwardly beneath ice crystals gathering along the fabric. Nathan Cross crouched slowly, cold pressed through denim against his knee. Atlas stood beside him motionless, watching, breathing steadily through drifting white wind. Nathan lifted the glove carefully. Still warm. Not much. Just enough. Behind him, boots crunched across packed snow. The young mother reached them first. One look and her hand flew over her mouth. "Emma," she whispered. Barely a sound. Barely air. Nathan stood slowly. Storm wind pulled hard across the parking lot. Highway lights blurred beyond falling snow. "How long ago?" Nathan asked quietly. 10 minutes maybe." Her voice trembled. 15 at most. Nathan nodded once. 15 minutes in weather like this felt longer. Too long. Atlas lowered his nose near the ground again. Moving slowly now. Purposefully. Snow carried scent strangely. Wind stole details. Buried truth beneath weather. But Atlas kept moving. Past Pump 4. Past tire tracks fading beneath fresh snowfall. Toward the far side of the diner property where darkness swallowed old storage buildings and abandoned vending machines near the edge of the truck stop lot. Mary stepped outside, pulling her coat tighter. Kayla behind her. Dispatch had been called. County deputies coming. Nathan barely heard her. Atlas stopped suddenly. Head lifted. Ears forward. Nathan felt it immediately. Change. Small but real. Atlas stepped left. Then right. Searching air itself now. Nathan followed carefully. Snow pushed harder against his face. Ice gathered along Atlas's sable fur. The German Shepherd moved toward an old maintenance shed sitting 50 yards beyond the diner parking lot. One dim security light flickered overhead. Yellow. Weak. Tired. Mason stood near the diner entrance watching. Arms crossed. Expression unreadable. Kid probably got scared and wandered, he called through wind. Nathan did not answer. Atlas reached the maintenance building. Stopped. Saturday. Perfectly still. Nathan walked slowly closer. No panique. No assumptions. Marine training lived inside patience. One careful breath at a time. Wind rolled past rusted metal siding, carrying cold and something else. Faint. Sweet. Hot chocolate. Nathan blinked once. The young mother stepped closer behind him. "Emma always wants hot chocolate when we travel." Atlas stood again. One slow step forward. Then another. Nathan moved around the side of the maintenance building. Snow deeper there. Nearly 8 inches drifting along old concrete barriers. Then he saw it. Small footprints. Child-sized. Leading toward the back corner near stacked supply pallets covered beneath blue tarps. Nathan felt relief and worry collide together inside his chest. Atlas moved faster now. Tail level. Focus complete. Nathan rounded the final corner. Snow swirled hard beneath pale security lights. Then through wind and darkness and winter cold came something small. Fragile. Almost lost beneath the storm. A voice. "Mom." The sound came again, softer this time, nearly carried away by wind and falling snow. "Mom." The young mother moved before anyone could stop her. Boots slipping against packed ice. Breath breaking apart in cold air. "Emma," she called into darkness. Atlas moved first. Fast but controlled. sable fur gathering snow across his back as he rounded stacked supply pallets beside the maintenance building. Nathan Cross followed close behind. Years of training still lived quietly inside him. Slow breathing, clear thinking. One step at a time. The security light flickered overhead. Weak yellow shadows moved across snow and rusted metal walls. Then Nathan saw her. Small frame, brown coat, pink glove missing from one hand. Curled near the far side of the pallets beside an old vending machine covered with frost. 8 years old. Scared. Cold. But there. Atlas reached her first. The German shepherd lowered himself slowly onto the snow 3 feet away. No sudden movement. No noise. Only calm. Emma lifted her head. Eyes wet. Face red from winter wind. Doggy, she whispered quietly. Nathan felt something tighten inside his chest. Atlas stayed still. Patient. Gentle. Like he understood fear came in many forms. The young mother dropped beside her daughter seconds later. Tears finally falling now. Relief stronger than fear. Stronger than pride. Emma. Her voice broke completely. She pulled her little girl close beneath falling snow and old Wyoming sky and held her like people hold miracles after almost losing them. Nathan looked away for a moment. Storm wind rolled hard across the truck stop lot. Snow brushing his coat collar. Alice slowly moved closer now. Emma wrapped one small hand into thick sable fur. I followed the lights, she whispered. Then I could not see where to go. Nathan crouched beside them carefully. You stayed near something big. Emma nodded. My teacher said if I get lost, do not keep walking. Nathan smiled quietly. Smart kid. Very smart kid. County deputy lights appeared minutes later beyond the highway entrance. Red and blue reflecting softly against fresh snowfall. Mary stood beside Caleb near the diner, watching from distance. Both smiling now. Both wiping away cold tears they would later blame on wind. Nathan helped Emma stand slowly. Atlas stayed beside her every step back toward warmth. Every step back toward light. Halfway across the parking lot, Emma stopped walking. Turned slowly. Looked toward Atlas. He found me. Nathan glanced down toward his old partner. Atlas walked quietly beside him. Same steady pace. Same silent loyalty. Emma reached down and pulled something carefully from her coat pocket. Small bracelet. Faded blue string woven around tiny silver. Stars. One star bent sideways. Nathan stopped moving completely. Winter disappeared. Noise disappeared. Time itself seemed to hesitate. Ryan had one exactly like it. Summer fair. Colorado Springs. 14 years ago. Alice looked up slowly toward Nathan. Amber eyes calm. Knowing. Somewhere behind them Russ Creek Diner glowed warm against storm and darkness. Somewhere ahead, something inside Nathan Cross had quietly begun to heal. The warmth inside Russ Creek Diner felt different when they stepped back through the door. Not warmer because the heater worked harder. Warmer because relief changes rooms. Snow melted slowly from boots onto old tile floors. Coffee still steamed beneath hanging lights. Country music still drifted quietly from the dusty radio near the register. But something invisible had shifted. Emma sat wrapped in blankets near the counter now. Mary had made hot chocolate without asking. Extra whipped cream. Caleb sat nearby, pretending not to watch too closely, while Emma carefully warmed small hands against the ceramic mug. Atlas lay stretched beside her chair. Calm, watchful, present. The little girl kept one hand resting gently against thick sable fur like she needed proof he was real. Nathan Cross stood near the windows looking towards snow rolling across Highway 26 beneath pale gas station lights. The blue bracelet stayed inside his coat pocket now. He had not touched it since Emma handed it to him. 14 years disappeared strangely. Not all at once. Piece by piece. Memory worked that way sometimes. Slow. Quiet. Like snow gathering on old ground. You okay? Mary asked softly beside him. Nathan blinked once. Yeah. She smiled gently. No, you are not. Nathan almost smiled back. Almost. Mary folded her arms loosely. People come through places like this every night. Her eyes moved across the diner. Truck drivers. Travelers. Families. Strangers. Most leave coffee cups and receipts behind. She glanced down toward Atlas. Some leave something bigger. Nathan looked toward Emma again. She laughed quietly at something Caleb said. First laugh since coming back inside. Small sound. Important sound. Caleb looked different too. Shoulders no. Longer, folded inward. Eyes lifted higher. Less invisible somehow. Nathan noticed Mason sitting alone, now, near the front window. Coffee untouched. Phone face down beside him. Quiet. No comments. No sharp jokes, hiding inside easy smiles. Just silence. Nathan understood silence. Sometimes it protected people. Sometimes it revealed them. Mason slowly stood. Walked toward the front register. Mary stepped over calmly. Nathan watched without meaning to. Mason cleared his throat once. The kid. Mary looked confused. Caleb. Mason nodded slightly. I was hard on him. Mary said nothing. Mason stared toward snow outside windows, gathering heavier now. My old man talked to me like that growing up. His voice stayed flat. Controlled. Guess some habits stay longer than people do. Nathan felt something tighten quietly inside his chest. Not anger. Something harder. Understanding. Mason pulled cash from his wallet. Folded bills. More than enough for dinner. More than enough for much more. Put this toward college. Mary blinked. What? Mason nodded toward Caleb without looking directly at him. Just do it. No speech. No grand apology. Just one small choice. Sometimes lives changed exactly that way. Quietly, Mason pulled on his jacket and stepped outside alone into falling snow. Nathan watched him disappear toward his truck beneath pale winter light. Atlas slowly lifted his head from beside Emma's chair. Amber eyes steady. Calm. Knowing. Like he had seen something long before everyone else finally caught up to it. Then Emma walked carefully toward Nathan, carrying her empty mug. Mr. Nathan? He knelt slowly beside her. Yes, sweetheart. Emma smiled softly. I think your dog fixes things people cannot see. Nathan looked toward Atlas. Old partner. Old soul. Snow kept falling beyond diner windows. Soft. Steady. Like grace arriving quietly where nobody expected it. By 4:30 in the morning, the storm finally began to loosen its grip on the highway. Snow still drifted across empty pavement, but the sharp Wyoming wind had softened into something quieter. Russ Creek Diner carried that strange feeling places sometimes hold after difficult nights. The feeling that something important had happened there. Something people would carry home without realizing it. The crowd had thinned. Truck drivers returned to roads opening slowly beneath county plows. Coffee pots sat half full beneath warm, hanging lights. The smell of maple syrup and bacon lingered low beneath old cedar beams darkened by years of winter mornings. Emma and her mother had left nearly 40 minutes ago. Before leaving, Emma walked back one last time toward Atlas. The German shepherd lifted his head slowly from the floor beside Nathan's booth. She wrapped both arms around his neck carefully. Atlas stayed perfectly still. Patient. Gentle. Present. Thank you, she whispered softly into sable fur. Nathan looked away toward the window. Some moments deserve privacy. Even small ones. Especially small ones. Caleb moved through the diner differently now. Nathan noticed immediately. Less hesitation. Less apology inside ordinary movement. The teenager carried plates with shoulders slightly straighter than before. Confidence rarely arrived all at once. Sometimes it entered quietly through side doors people forgot existed. Mary walked over carrying fresh coffee without asking. House rules, she said softly. Nathan smiled faintly. I thought house rules ended 3 refills ago. Not tonight. Steam drifted upward between them. Warm light reflected softly against old photographs hanging near the register. Ranchers. Veterans. County football teams from 20 years ago. Ordinary people living ordinary lives. Nathan pulled the blue bracelet slowly from his coat pocket. Silver stars worn smooth with time. Emma's bracelet sat beside Ryan's memory now in ways he still could not fully explain. Mary noticed it immediately. Pretty important? Nathan stared quietly at the faded blue thread wrapped around his fingers. Yeah. His voice came lower than expected. More than I realized. Mary nodded once. No questions. Good people knew silence had seasons too. Atlas slowly stood beside the booth. Stretched carefully. Nathan noticed stiffness near his back leg. Small thing. Easy to miss. Except Nathan never missed things about Atlas. 7 years old. Hard years before retirement. Long roads. Long work. Atlas moved slower lately. Slept deeper. Gray beginning to touch sable around his muzzle. Time always collected quietly first. Caleb approached, carefully holding something folded in both hands. Paper napkin. Pencil marks. I made this. Nathan opened it slowly. Simple drawing. Rust Creek Diner. Snow. Atlas standing tall beside a little girl wearing one pink glove. Nathan Cross standing behind them. Not perfect lines. Not professional art. Better than both. Honest. Caleb shifted awkwardly. For your dog. Nathan looked down toward Atlas. Atlas leaned quietly against his leg. Warm. Solid. Familiar. Nathan folded the drawing carefully and slipped it beside the bracelet inside his coat pocket. Outside, morning slowly began building itself beyond storm clouds. Pale gray light touched fresh snow along Highway 26. The world looked cleaner after hard weather. Not perfect, just quieter. Sometimes that mattered more. Nathan reached for his truck keys, resting beside cooling coffee. Atlas moved toward the diner door slowly. Calm, steady, ready to leave. Then Mary said something softly from behind the register. You know what the funny thing is? Nathan looked back. Mary smiled gently. Your dog walked in here, fixing somebody else. Her eyes drifted toward Caleb cleaning tables near the front window, then toward Nathan himself. Turns out he fixed more than one thing tonight. 3 months later, winter had finally loosened its hold over northern Wyoming. Snow no longer crowded the highway shoulders. Pine trees stood taller beneath clean blue skies. The sharp edge of cold had softened into early spring air, carrying damp earth, and would smoke across long, open miles of country road. Highway 26 stretched quietly beneath pale morning sunlight as Nathan Cross drove west with one hand resting loosely against worn steering leather. Atlas lay in the back seat, resting quietly beneath sunlight spilling through the window. Older now, slower lately, still watching everything. Always watching. Rust Creek Diner appeared ahead, exactly where memory had left it. Neon sign buzzing softly against daylight. One letter still hanging crooked. Nathan parked beside pump. 4. Same place. Some habit stayed because healing like familiar ground. The bell above the diner door rang softly when he stepped inside. Warm coffee. Bacon. Country music low beneath conversation. Same cedar walls. Same old photographs. Same feeling. Mary spotted him immediately. Look who finally came back. Nathan smiled quietly. Road brought me through. Road had 3 months, she answered. Took its time. Atlas walked beside him slowly now. Gray touched more of his muzzle. Movement more careful than before. But his eyes remained the same. Steady. Wise. Present. Caleb stepped out from behind the counter, carrying fresh coffee, toward a table near the front window. Nathan stopped walking. Caleb looked different. Taller somehow. Not physically. Something else. Confidence settled differently inside him now. He wore the same apron. Same diner. Different shoulders carrying it. Mr. Cross. Caleb smiled wider than Nathan remembered. Good to see you. Nathan nodded once. Good to see you too. Mary leaned quietly beside him. Applied to college. Nathan looked toward Caleb. Yeah. Mary smiled proudly. Community college first. Business classes. Caleb rubbed the back of his neck, awkwardly hearing them talk. Still figuring things out. Nathan understood that feeling. Most people spent whole lives figuring things out. Atlas slowly moved away from the booth and toward the far wall near the register. Nathan watched quietly. Something had caught his attention. Again, same old Atlas. Same silent certainty. Nathan followed him. Framed beside old county football photos hung something new. Simple wood frame. Handwritten paper behind glass. Caleb's drawing. Snow. Little girl. German shepherd standing watch beneath winter sky. But now there was more. A sentence written carefully beneath it. Some heroes do not stop storms. They stay until storms pass. Nathan stood still longer than he meant to. Mary folded her arms quietly beside him. People liked it. Nathan glanced toward Atlas. The old German shepherd lowered himself slowly beneath the drawing, resting there like he belonged beneath it. Maybe he did. Nathan stepped outside an hour later carrying fresh coffee for the road. Spring sunlight stretched long across open Wyoming miles. Wind moved softly through distant pine trees. Atlas climbed carefully into the truck. Nathan rested one hand gently along thick sable fur before closing the door. "Good work, partner," he said quietly. Atlas looked back once. Calm eyes. Familiar eyes. The kind that carried years without complaint. Nathan climbed behind the wheel. Engine started low beneath morning air. Rust Creek Diner slowly disappeared inside the rearview mirror as highway opened wide ahead. Long road. Endless sky. Some pain leaves loudly. Some stays quietly and changes shape until one day it no longer feels like weight. Just memory. Just love learning where to live. Nathan drove west beneath open Wyoming sky, while Atlas rested peacefully behind him, and somewhere far behind them beneath warm lights and cedar walls and coffee steam, a small diner kept serving breakfast to strangers who would never know how close Grace once walked through its doors on 4 quiet paws.